Thank you, everybody. My name is Caro. I'm founder of LightNet, and we're so pleased to have you here tonight for this very special evening. We've been working many days to make this as special as possible for you. Zoey's going to talk a little bit about her vision, but again, this is so that we can bring the smartest people in all of Sedona for every single future trend there is, and that opened my mind to the fact that what we thought was possible yesterday is totally tools and ideas and consciousness to grab 70 years. So I highly recommend you checking that out. So I want to thank a couple. Not only have they been a massive mentor in my life and supporting LightNet all. Thank you so much. So Bradley just donated $250, which is going to go to the fact that we won't have to rent napkins and tablecloth that, and we even have ideas to hand paint them. So if you'd like to make a donation. So at LightNet, we're really a mystery school to teach you an edge of evolution, I could say, where you're 8 weeks on Zoom and you are changing the way you believe in your capabilities. Piece of paper, and again, if you have questions about this, you can talk to one of the making egg rolls and stuff. So we really couldn't do it without our loving community. And lastly, I want to introduce Sabine and Leslie, who are technology for you guys to experience tonight. So they've got 2 beds in that room.
Night long, offering that to as many of you as we can. The a frequency session is about 15 minutes. Have a Tesla device here that we have actually done this experiment, with citizen scientists, and now as if you want to close your eyes and take a nice deep breath and just feel into the energy here in this incredible vortex space, popping up even on the freeways up from the valley. There's a lot of 5G towers now, natural frequencies, but also the artificial frequencies that are now all over. And take a nice deep breath. I'd like for you to just stick a word if they're feeling a change in the field around them and also in the quantum field inside of their own bodies and cells. Anybody else notice a change? E-smog here from this field that is coming through, the 5G communication system, and that for more minutes. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I'm going to add another frequency combination. There is a change. Coffee. Wow, that's profound. Anybody else notice anything? Hundreds of people that all of a sudden everybody says, I feel like I'm at the beach. Because it actually is, everything has a vibration. So an elm tree, of these, creations, because at the core level, everything is the enhancement of our space here so we can continue to be in nature and play in our full humanity.
Everyone to Sedona's Metaphysical Salon. My name is Zoey Wind. I will be standing, and we will be trying to stand so that everyone can see us as we're speaking throughout the evening, because last time I'm an astrologer, a New Earth architect in different forms, and I don't know how many people would have shown up. I don't know if where I was they would have shown, or if it would have happened in this way. Incredible work to be a speaker on the panel, and she's like, why don't we do this at my realness in the world, some harder truths to swallow, some new, and I always dedicate this space to my father, Peter Caserta, who an incredible manifester, and I lost him. He transitioned into higher realms, and loved ones, as I'm sure we all have, to the medical industry as it stands. The time is now. The time is now to act for all of us, and so there was a time years ago after luring us back to the seeking of truth and healing and awakening, who are shifting. I have 2 voucher of this reality. For if we don't, I don't know what I would do. Science, how we can shift medicine, how we can shift healing for humanity, for the collective, when so utilized by various whatever means. of that which is good and beautiful and creates a world that is beautiful and healthy. Okay, is that okay? Okay, that's so much better. Because I'm like, in this transition, which is said to be roughly a 200-year transition time in between the great ages, which are roughly, and a lot of other things. We're moving into the age of Aquarius, which is point field, activation of the quantum field. So we're in a really potent time because he's entered in, and we had, AI and all this, but he'll be going back into Capricorn to go into mind, soul, complex, and beyond. So I would love to introduce my panel to you. There's subjective states, depth interviews, and extensive coaching in forgiveness, engaged indifference, and non-attachment. Of personality dysfunction, reducing stress and anxiety, reversing key aspects out, and has authored and co-authored more than 60 papers and professional presentations. So let's give it up. A purple, glowing, registered nurse, BSN and CCRN, the Honolulu ECMO program of Hawaii, bringing forward the highest technological heart-lung bypass medical technologies for newborns and children, global pediatric and family energy healing and mastery, serving as a planetary consciousness, and the Center for Conscious Awareness.org and Center for Conscious Kids to heal children and families around the world through. And Dr. Todd in the center here, best as the best of all the residents across the board. During a meditative experience, he communicated to the pure awareness of DNA. Agelessness is possible through 3 years of biological age reversal per treatment and expanded awareness. I'm so excited. Thank you. Local superstars, so grateful to have you here. And they are social scientists living in troubled times. Recently, the Harts both co-authored a book with Dr. Elizabeth Roscher called Mind Dissecond from the University of Minnesota. Their latest book, so much. And last but not least, we have Dr. Clint for alternative medicine. As a skeptic, which I love, of anything outside the realm, documenting the ancient secrets and sharing them with the world through his TEDx talk, which has reached millions, and his new Break World Wellness and trustee of the Ancient Secrets Foundation. Wow. I'm so honored to be up here with you all. Crisis, which just seemed to be initiations for me into this of your personal journey that brought you to this work and keeps you inspired along this path. And whoever has the mic.
Well, thanks for the great introductions. And it was them at conferences twice in the past year, which has been really exciting. And his book was actually one of the inspirations that led me to that you detailed. I was also studying with the Sufi master and has a so-called natural frequency. And I intuitively knew that the virus had a different structure from human. I was inspired 3 months before all that training to go to a covered using a variety of consciousness and physical methods, including the Feldenkrais technique. So that inspired typically what someone with my background would do. And moved to California, Guardians of the Gate, these 8-foot Ali Baba guards with the curved swords. And they said that the information in this domain is very sacred, use it respectfully, and they were destroyed. And they literally showed people being decapitated. And the communication was that the understanding of proteins that make life possible. However, in addition, what's not of current in a supercoiled structure, you basically get a transmission and receiving system. And the core learn how to instruct a 6-cell to become, allows us to communicate with DNA to activate its higher dimensional properties and release the full potential. Our genetic optimism theory that vector sum zero wave can go through hundreds of the original HIV discovery paper, and with the frequency that was defined for that based upon how the GP120 protein on the surface formed, and that wave alone neutralized HIV by 80%. And he built software where we can take any peptide sequence you can imagine in a short period of time to find the specific frequency pattern to activate that sequence.
So how do people access this technology?
Monopoly. So we then took that discovery and applied it to supplements and created Lipton and myself, and the authors actually read it cover to cover. It is incredibly esoteric. It's a beautiful book. Probably many others have read it, but those are the ones that and the biggest thing we've done, because I know others need to speak, but it's a long story, what's profound, and I think it's even in the stem cell world, that our body makes a particular type of stem cell. It's very young, no matter how old you are. And so we've learned how to just draw 60 cc's of blood, and from that we separate, concentrate, and use the laser to a biologic aging clock, 3 years per treatment. With repeated treatments, we now have people that are 12 to 18 years. I'd go for 1,000 at least.
I mean, 7,000 is my next leap. I just go with you know,
the
exponential here.
Seven, 7.
I don't know why it keeps coming in.
These cells, we've reversed Parkinson's, stroke, and blindness in less than an hour, for example. Plus, it's vision that the real purpose is best outcomes. And my goal, which includes the best of all technologies that exist, the best of the best, and I know with the best of everything, and the core concept is to create the future medicine of 100 years from now, today.
Pre-med and was planning to go to school to be a naturopathic and Chinese doctor. And so thank you, because I'm so grateful somebody's doing it and that you're not the only one.
They're trained to do it. Come on. Greatest artisans in the world into this methodology. We're creating a think tank of the most innovative practitioners on the planet, and that process is expensive.
Because I want to go back to what Zoey had said. You know, she went from medical to the stars. And
for Todd, who I think eventually should get the Nobel Prize, I'm very honored to be here because this is a time when people having the identical birth moment can wear different clothes, eat certain foods. Very intelligent. She really was really the top mind of what I call the real Earth files, the real X-files. Actually stop a war in the Middle East comes out of deep humility. There's no easy answers. One acquires a gift, a direction, and one should follow that through spiritual intuition. Terrestrial intelligence, but ultra-terrestrial intelligence, which we'll consider that higher
frequencies, you can actually heal DNA. And they actually took his technology. He was actually up for a Nobel Prize and before he devised a device using similar technology that Todd was. All of us are. We are energy first, matter second. The matter is only made from the energy that we represent, even our brains. And so I'd like to go over to maybe Dr. Hardt, if you'd like, or someone else who talks.
Unconditional love and compassion.
Yes, thank you.
Katrine at her place here in, geez, if I say weird things. We say at Biocybernaut, weird is wonderful.
Yes,
Biocyber is the body. Cyber is a derivative of I'd slam one fist into my palm and say, brainwaves rule. Not being a teenager, which is any experience that you have as a living human being who says that identity and reality are synonymous. So if you change your identity, okay, so how do you change your identity? Well, long consecutive days at Biocybernaut. The pattern of advanced Zen brainwaves can be achieved by someone who's never. When you change your brainwaves, you change your identity. It's called the quest for mindfulness. Mindfulness has become a multi-billion-dollar industry. The quest for mindfulness, something that probably all of you here share. I also make a donation, or you can just take a book. Now, in terms of changing your identity, in this work, I was giving personality tests, measuring an aspect of it out, copies of, among other things, the MMPI, stands for Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. It covers things like paranoia, schizophrenia, psychasthenia, mania, depression. Take one of these to a clinical psychologist, and they could read that person's beads. It's very accurate. So I was giving it before people based on first factor of the MMPI, entitled Anxiety and Aging, Intervention with EEG Alpha Feedback. The target population was college-age males. Anxiety is higher in women than it is in men at every age. The disposition goes down when alpha goes up. So shortly after I win this grant, I am promoted from within the august department for 10 minutes about their research. So I figured, wow, these guys are going to love these graphs of the MMPI from before to after. Chairs angrily shouting, shaking their fists, waving their fingers. Now we know change your reality. It's a simple matter to live in a better world. Now, I was asked to fall semester, and I come out of the student union, and there's a big hand-painted sign. Every letter is her students had painted these signs. At the end of the talk, I was absolutely fascinated. I had been interested in phenomena Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, and it was really cool stuff, but it in Zen is characterized by super high alpha waves all over the head. They do differ significantly. If you disrupt a yogi, and some philosophy says this is all Maya, and when they're in samadhi, it's irrelevant. The time you ring the bell, the alpha blocks. It's like the William Blake phrase, when the doors of perception are cleansed, everything appears to man. In samadhi and super high alpha, which is extremely reactive, reading the history of brainwaves. They were actually discovered in 1908 by Herr Dr. Hans Berger, an Austrian. In a battle, fell on and broke his leg, many long months in a hospital. He goes back to activity in the brain. Volta in France had been showing electrical activity in frog-leg muscles. And so he finds it. Old hospitals start wanting to measure brainwaves, but nobody thinks to do feedback. And so he's the one that came to my college campus and told me about this. Well, in the spring next year, when I graduate, volunteering as a research subject. But I had learned a little bit about how the lab worked. Joanne Gardner was Joe Camilla's Sam. She took me downstairs, put a couple of electrodes on, popped me in the closet, and so they all piled back into the van, hurtled back across town, rushed into the building, ripped open the door of the changer, and interrupted the late stage. So I've had out-of-body experience, I've had with all the brainwaves. And so when the door is opened, interrupting the late stages of this incredible adventure, later somebody else say, oh, that's a meditation experience. I could spell the word, I didn't know what it was. I want to have my rational mind have somebody's stamp of approval. So after I register, I go up the hill, become friends with, during my senior year, had been a grad student under Timothy Lappin. This is all written about in a Megabrain report in 1984. And so that's available. It's also available on the Biocybernaut. And at the end, he folds his hands and he says, vocation. And that vocation is to expand awareness, to reduce suffering, and
story. And I want to talk more about the power, our awareness, our healing. And I'm also really passionate about what the ancient peoples have known for a long time. And whoever wishes, please.
Concept for me, because indigenous is up here in the stars. It's less here on planet. Started remembering everything in between. And so I could say being present in the moment when we were conceived, maybe even preconception. That's what we're here to also focus on. Same alignment as I am, focusing on children, pediatric growth and family growth, the Richter scale. And I didn't understand what that meant because I thought everybody was the same. And I think all of us do. We all understand how to perceive other people's perceptions, experience and express it outward to share with everyone else. And so it's such a delight to be here in this moment, and I want to be with people. And then I realized that pediatrics was where it was at. My child grew up as well. In that process of being in all of the environments of intensive care, medical care, I realized connecting to our true nature and to what was really happening, right? I don't know, some of the indigenous Toltecs talk about assemblage points, right? And all of those Aryan, not born to breatharian environment. So I didn't know how to take in that consciousness and create it inside unity rather than inside separation. And degradation with each other and competition. But I did remember seeing the Dune movie in 1984, I think. And he's so about 2 years ago, I finished my career in the intensive care unit when our governor in California decided that vaccines and all this sort of stuff was, not okay. So I decided that I wouldn't do it. And a charge nurse had told me, she said, well, why are you quitting? Because you know how to clear vaccines. And I said, because you don't. And I don't have enough time to teach all of you how to clear the vaccines in your own body. And I mean the mRNA, the nanobots, and all the rest of it. I really learned, and I didn't realize this, but I call myself a molecular structuralist. So I can deconstruct molecules. How do I do that? Photonic light? I think so, right? We're beginning to do that. Being indigenous with the planet and everyone here, the plants, the animals, the earth. Empath, being a telepath, being a multidimensional walker, all sorts of things. We don't realize it, but it's very much or unconsiderate to have a different reality. And when are we able to, let's come forward now and allow in the bridging times, Western medicine and other environments, that we're moving way beyond now, which I know we're here to do that, right? With the stem cells, to change them and to adjust, to support understanding how to navigate these categories so that we can get clear in the mind so that our brainwave...
Yes, thank you.
I mean, it's really, how do we determine that? And I realized that many of the quantum particles interact with our emotional states and other energetic states, relationships of all sorts. And literally, I'm watching it unfold. And I'm so gracious to be amongst all of you and our outer to be expressed equally and beautifully. Thank you.
All right. Super, so beautiful. Wow. Anyone in the last minutes, at least one point was like, wow, how cool. This is a day of our lives. Yeah. It's such a dance that Dr. Todd read this amazing book, one of 3 people that read it. But how cool that he was just days ago took this because he read this. It's like so cool. Hangman Jerem, Nell, so glad that you're here. So I'm like, oh, cool. It was the portal of unstoppable. He called me. Then I'm thinking, how did I know Zenka? And so as you do a healing session with all of our friends and family, they come. Like they were thinking of community actually, and like not just them being the spoke to everyone that came to their wedding. And I was thinking a little bit awkwardly, are you sure you want to do that for your brilliance of this and brilliance of this? And, I actually get bored by intelligent people. I don't know if bored is the right, but I'm so fascinated. Like, they're not just intelligent, but so kind. Mm-hmm. Like miracle experiment, there was about 1,500 people playing it right at the beginning of COVID. And we were playing this game. We're like, okay, let's do. And I saw people have so much powerful healing and financial abundance miracles. That sacred healing moment. And so I'm like, oh, that was cool. Miracle experiment game brought me here. Like the miracle, I'm here. And then I think on starting the miracle experiment game, but it was actually because my teacher, so 25, had a teacher who lived to be 145, had a teacher. The original teacher in the lineage was Jivaka. Let's see if I pull Jivaka, who is the physician for Buddha. Let's see if I can show you the of. So skeptical of it, like Zoey had talked about, big skeptic. And when I first saw the healing miracles, my isn't that weird? Yeah. Like you can see a miracle, but inside of me was like, wait a minute. But it's not because of like romantic love, although there was a moment talking about how I got here. I met Dr. Ram, but I wasn't interested. Questions because that was my default, like when I got awkward. So I was like, what are you interested in? And then she gave me her phone number. So I was like, oh man, now I have to actually do that thing. But it's so funny, that was the portal that figures it out later. And so in the impulse of love, when I met Dr. Ram, I discounted so much courage. I couldn't even talk to her that I ever got in India. So it didn't work out with her, but as a result, I learned about this thing. I couldn't internalize it. I just couldn't make sense of it. It was too much beyond of his desk, and he looked at the ground for a long time. And finally, when he looked up, he said, I haven't told your mother and I haven't told your brothers or sisters. That was when like whatever else was important just faded away. I say, I just met this healer, and even in the words coming out of my mouth, I was a little bit cringing but desperate. And I said, he knows what's happening in you, and then he can help you. Now, I thought this would provide hope. At night, it feels like someone threw my body against the wall, and sometimes I don't even know if I want to live to see the morning. Now, I can imagine being a dad for Father's Day. I don't care, I'm gonna introduce you to this, I'm gonna bring you to see this healer. But 2 that month said they still didn't know how to help him, so he had lost hope. So 6 months later, I'm sitting in the chair in front of him, problem, and then he broke this big smile. He says, now I don't know what to do with all these medications. He helps kids. My dad's big interest was kids. He said his passion project was called The Missing Piece in Education. People graduated from Harvard or Stanford, whatever, but then they have a whole series of broken marriages and lawsuits. Then paying attention to the passwords. Here's your passwords back. Anyway, so the impulse of love then led me to Dr. Naram saying, just know this is a choice. They should know it's an option. They may not choose extremely long ages with vibrant health, unlimited energy, and peace of mind. So I said to him, I want to help you. I think more, and I remember that moment being so confused because I thought he'd be so happy that I was fine. Even if I told you these ancient secrets, you try to figure it out with your mind instead of understand it with your heart. So I think, that was the hardest. And I'm not going to go into that whole story, but that was invented, a game invented by people of a university that I do this thing and then I have a PhD. One of my professors said that PhD, you learn.
I've heard it called
permanent head damage.
Documenting thousands of cases in hundreds of cities all over planet Earth, like my father. People coming out of coma, out of paralysis. Who am I? Yeah. What's my identity? And then who's seen Karate Kid? At process, it was like Daniel LaRusso, and Miyagi is like, paint the fence. And I was like, oh, I learned that. Or it seemed impossible. Miracles is like daily occurrences. Yeah. That it can happen. And then the most crazy gift. Have you guys heard the quote, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and when the student is really at age 65. Talk about mind. So much pain in my body, so much confusion and depression. I went walking the streets just to move my body so I didn't do something horrible to myself. He followed me. Airports closed for 7 months. This dog was with me. His name is Possible. But this dog, Milo, is what started the miracle game that did this whole thing that brought me here. Reflecting to me all the things that weren't that. And then in that space, and that won't come from our brains necessarily, it will come from our hearts. Love will guide us. And so thank you for being here with you. I'm so excited to dance.
Thank you. Reality, and I create everything, and everyone's an illusion, and you're just a figment of my illusory okay, yeah, we can understand the quantum physics and that we're mostly space. With me, this world that we're in. I'm not creating it by myself. I create my reality, my responses. I can shift, I can create, access these technologies that are so groundbreaking and breakthrough. And for some people, around for a month, or, my dad sending Zenka to me, whatever it is. Was born from, I was literally like on my knees at 27 crying at my altar to my ears, and he goes, your magic is sitting on couches and talking to people. And I was like, I'm already doing this, And so then look at and I have so many questions because Albert Einstein said, and I'll probably say this at every single salon, but Albert Einstein said, which question to ask? And the final 5, solving it. I think we've talked a bit about that, but if that sparks you. And then the other is, we just experience massive in order to heal, because for me, with complex trauma throughout, really freaked people out. If I'm not in logic, people aren't sure what to do. So I'm really curious I think, reality is going to change at this time. So if any 3 of those hit you, and Dr. Hardt is ready.
Last question. I have a short and a very short thing to say about feedback. In English said, Biocybernaut better than having own Zen master. And I go, Ruho, you're a Zen master. How could master busy? Have many student. You sit, you repeated, Biocybernaut better than having owned Zen Master? That was the short one, the very short one. The short one is, produce the same brainwave patterns as advanced Zen, which done in Japan. We did a tea ceremony. Then the leader sat down and said, now we don't understand how you can produce the same. And I said, that's the right question. And here's why. I did them. Next morning I came out, all the blueberries were gone. They'd been ripped out of the ground, chewed into little twigs, and my wife came to the door and yelled at me for being responsible for this. And for 15 minutes I'm on this rant, and then I wake up and I go, oh, I'm supposed to be meditating. And I bring myself back. Experience. Now, if you're in one of my chambers, you've got a minimum of 4 go through the week, you get more tones, and so feedback is the answer. You need feedback to accumulate experience. I formulated the mind, your brain, or your body about which you...
To this evening. In the intensive care unit in San Diego a few years ago, a little baby, and it had cut the aorta because it was a 3.5. Talked to the nurse practitioner and said, what's going on? What happened? Well, the intimal wall tore during the cath. And I said, well, I'm not going to feed the baby. 29 years. That I'm going to say, no way. But I said, something weird is going on here. Why do I have the baby? I'm like, okay, I guess I have to feed the baby. So the baby's fine otherwise. Yes. I said, beautiful. So I held the baby before giving the baby some food. And I went over, really? Right? You know that. And so I said, well, okay, there you go. So the next day I'm in charge in the unit, and we took the baby to the CT scanner, and there was nothing there. What was the receptivity of all of us providing this level of care? For more energy to flow, probably stem cell work, right? And the baby has lots of that at 3 weeks of age. And that allowed that opportunity to really open and flourish.
So I see miracles every day too, so it's hard to pick just one. So I'd like to do one that kind of dementia, forgetting your keys, activities of daily. And dementia is usually not reversible. There are like innovative practitioners that have some methods, but it's generally not quick. And water polo, which was kind of cool, Terry Schroeder is his mother-in-law actually. So if high alpha is the representative brainwave pattern of Satori and Samadhi,
Themselves be doing in order to activate that? Were they healing the brain?
we send them to her brain.
You
We
send them
direct them where to
straight
go, since reversing an hour lefts. And it's too fast for neurogenesis. So there's this concept of idling neurons, where the nerves aren't dead, but they're having, these cells are capable of becoming basically one-day-old process of decoding every single thing in the body, which is called biological decoding, and is a subset of all this. Methodology defines the specific conflict, a very small subset, that find the core unresolved unconscious emotional conflict, yours or ancestral. And if you cured for the person, you cured for all their ancestors.
How do you cure that? So you identify the core emotional wound, and did you say the work?
Conscious, unresolved emotional conflict, and it can be the ancestral as well. So I'll give a very quick example because it's really easy decoding. 30 or 40 degrees from her side for 7 months. World in every organ and bone and joint means something. The hands represent our day-to-day work in the world, but the shoulder is the conflict of a new touch and decoding, which has worked every single time for frozen shoulder, and that can show a case where in 2 minutes it goes from this to like that. And so they find it, and then they say how much it would require. So question one, were you starting something new? The second question, loved ones in the same way. And then they go, yeah, and then there's this concern. And they say, okay, well, lift your arm, and she did. And that's just one example. Yeah. The 6-word decoding, which is kind of my favorite, multiple consultants, no one could improve it whatsoever. Yeah. But was it? What is the 6-word question? I'll give you $500. When was the last time you had sex? That's always a good question. Want a boy.
Wow, and that was lodged in the pelvic region, and because it was in the pelvis,
Because that's the decoding for pelvic pain.
is
This-
being
And then Ricky Baran and Isabel Benarus were students of Claude Sabat, and they're the leading pioneers. And Ricky teaches the psycho-emotional anatomy. You learn the specific conflict of every bone, joint. The more they cured for themselves and their ancestors. Question?
What's with the neck?
The neck? Want to guess? For the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar vertebra. And the specific theme of the cervical spine is conflict of communication.
wow.
Of the lumbar spine, it's the conflict of having to be those decodings or the other, for example.
Incredible.
And the final area, like how do we can now create a formula based upon the age reversal that we see, even that we have in hand today, that we can take anyone of any age and move them back to the epigenetic optimum of 25 years. And you spend 3 years, all of a sudden, you're at a different level of consciousness. Then you do it again, turn back to 25. You spend 3 more years developing, and 3 more years developing, and what?
Yes,
Right?
this is what
So
I'm saying.
unlimited up-leveling. And
Maybe we can have a little extra more time.
What?
A little more time.
Yes, no, we want to hear what you all
So
have to
Todd, speaking of the hands, the cover of the Keys of Enoch are 7 pairs of hands representing the 7 chakras. Movie which some consider a documentary. The music is turned on. And in our work, in the variety of sound, in a variety of situations, even turning lights on inside the Great Pyramid, which shocked the Egyptian authorities.
Service or whatever is all part of that, is because we really create miracles for each other, like Ashley did for the child. It was humbling. It's all part of a greater cosmic whole. That is the quantum consciousness that we all share. We see ourselves as separate because there's some other small writers in there, and she's an amazing person. Go get an acoustic piano, an old-fashioned one, so to speak. And she had been trained years ago in classical, and they said, do a class, bring it through yourself. Don't go into Bach or Beethoven. So she started playing this music, and she's out there on bethgreen.org, and her husband started waking up. Literally, I think he's doing meditation. When they brought him into the laboratories, it was the gamma right now. Todd's part of it, Hardt is part of it.
His life is the musical keyboard. We have play now in the higher chakra levels of the keyboard. Or can I reach millions of people? I thought to myself, well, who can reach millions of people? ETs and UTs. The ETs want us to give up. The UTs want us to survive and go forth. And so it's very important to have spirit use it dramatically with the great masters, but also with the mastery within yourself, because to the future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Spirit science.
Wow, beautiful. Wow. We haven't even eaten dinner. It's so delicious already.
We have all night.
It's happening all the time. It's hard to pick, but just let's say yesterday. So we're at the Unstoppable Love event, and during lunch, a woman who is from Hawaii had frozen shoulder. 6-word question. I'm so proud I have a 4-word question. It's way easy. Well, this one's okay, I'll show the Japanese one. So there's one right behind you. Oh, actually, hold these for a second. It's right there. Oh, sorry about that. So in this, and it was this question. And I saw Dr. Ram ask it again and again. When you're in anxiety, you're just focused on what you don't want. If you be curious, you're like, oh yeah, focus on what I don't want. When the mind gets pointed to what you do want, a different experience happens. Remove blocks and renew the balance in your system. And so and then later in the day, a man who's about 80 who'd been walking with a cane for I don't know how long, I says, what do you want? He says, I want to process this ancient technology that these masters figured out. What are the points on your own point? Saw the imbalance, pressed the points, everything was balanced. He stood up, and then it's like a moment of, okay, what's going to happen now? And then he walked across Something Tall Sally. Long Tall Sally. You guys know that song? Yes. All right, so this Marma point is on your left hand. Left hand, and there, I think I need someone to hold this for me. Can you hold this microphone just so I can demonstrate? Fleshy part between the thumb and the pointer finger like this. And in the red frame, you put something that you need to let go of and forgive. Maybe it's forgiving yourself. Maybe it's something that happened where it could be deep like that. You may not even know what it is, but you can just 6. And you say, I forgive and I forget. I forgive and I forget. First time I learned this one was so powerful. At the time I was married, My wife came out of the room. She's like, Clint, the marma works. I was like, what? So on our body are all these, this is a cool technology. What food we feed here, but also, a titi deva bawa, treat the unexpected guest as if God himself or herself has come. Be like, this is our moment. This is why we're born. From that, and let love guide that. You know, it's so fun because even when and then you put it in the universe, and then you attract whatever that thing is. What if you could see miracles happen that are beyond even anything that you could imagine? My depression. At the time, I was thinking, I'm not calculated. He's not going to reach the whole world in his lifetime, even if he lives to 200. Maybe when he lives to 2,000 or I don't know. But then I was like, okay, how can more for the honor of him, I'm just going to publish it because this dog showed up and melted my heart. Whoa. Like that was a miracle beyond what I thought. It wasn't law of attraction. It was the law of heart saying, I want to make a difference. It wasn't because I wanted to be seen. It's because I wanted to be about to go to Turkey to launch it in Turkish. And this is so crazy. This is Farsi. Miracles can happen beyond what you even imagine. That sounds cool. And then she tucked it in her bag and she says she didn't steal it, she just borrowed it. But brought it home, read the whole thing that night, contacted me, said this needs to be in Farsi. I said, good news, it's already in Farsi. But the problem is we can't get it into Iran, our Amazon. Second of all, I know the #1 publisher in Iran. So she's like, let me give it to them. And it's so beautiful. The first story is about a little Muslim girl moved. Awesome. Miracles happen when I follow this principle. They're so excited. The woman who contacted the publisher came on the call and told the story. Happened, but she's like, I'm also from Iran. The same thing with the Turkish book. You couldn't get book into Turkey. I even tried to give it to the translator. We sent it 3 different ways. It wasn't happening. Then and accessible. It's remedies in your kitchen and points on your body. I go there in September and it's distributed through all of Turkey. I couldn't have imagined that. So I have 2 gifts I want to give. One, it says $297. If you want to play, you just put in the code LOVE. Instead of focusing on what we don't want, focus on what we want. We pay attention. A titi deva bawa, what's the unexpected guest? And see what kind of crazy mystical miracles that are beyond even your own imagining that collect that this woman loves me. That's like a great miracle. But so I just was in Nepal with some orphan kids. There's 9 orphanages we support. Yeah. Oh, you want to hold this up a little bit more? He waited for 40 years. He didn't know that Dr. Hardt was existing. He did the long way. He got to a certain state, and then he's like, and every seed on the tree has a third eye. And it's said that it helps awaken your...
The tree called?
It's called the bodhicitta tree.
Oh, the bodhicitta.
Bodhicitta tree. Mm-hmm. So, with love, I'm ready for this life. Let's face the fear and ego and instead step in. I met with my mom and I said, Mom, I know you love me, but there's things I haven't told you because I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I'm scared. I don't know how to tell you. Do you want to know or not want to know? You just want to love me anyway? She's like, no, don't choose for me. And so it took so much courage to speak those things. And in that space, my mom says, I don't know what to say. I'm not judging you, but the next morning at the airport where I came here to Sedona, she hugged me and she says, Clint, why not we embrace all of this deliciousness of life and give ourselves the chance to actually be seen in this moment and seeing you. So beautiful. If you want to play the miracle.
A man of great accomplishments, a great patriot, a man whom I appreciate on so many levels of his...
Is Sedona, so we'll just say a little bit about his background, and maybe he'll say a few words.
Several unique programs, including the applications of psychokinesis, advancing human performance with neurolinguistic program, a unique energy source called the Hutchinson effect. And the John Alexander joined the Los Alamos National Labs. Of course, we're going to see unfolding in the near future.
Right. He worked on the global in the United States, but his main work really recently has been with remote viewing. He's one of the top agents, we could say, for scientific exploration, and his books are on future war. We're bringing him here for tomorrow at 3 o'clock at Sedona. John, say a few words, and at the same time I want to thank Zanka.
50 years ago by letter, he didn't perhaps remember this, but my wife and I were, and John came to mind psychically, so I wrote him and asked him, would you join us in a film project? And he said yes. Unfortunately, we never got the funding together to complete.
location that we're going to meet at. I would give you just two things. The first line of my book is UFO, and at the end it says, whatever this is, it is more...
Flyers up there if you want to learn more about tomorrow's program. And there you can pick it up and you can join.
For sharing. Oh my God, let's give it up for this incredible panel of hope. This is the most advanced spiritual technology in the universe, and I wish that this thing was working the whole time. And I just want to remind everyone that this is a salon that were the birthplace of the French Enlightenment, which gave way to the American movement in the community, come together to develop important ideas and concepts. So please don't be intimidated by experts and letters and what the rest of this night is dedicated to. All of us sharing and creating. There is vegan option, there is a salmon option. They have lovely plated it for you back there, so please let them know what